Hello, everyone. Welcome to the Collecting Vintage Unopened podcast. My name is Brandon Stewart. This is a podcast devoted to discussing anything and everything in regards to the collecting of unopened sports cards and non-sports cards. And today we have a special guest on who is a what we call a player collector in Unopened. And that is a individual that focuses on unopened packs with a specific player showing, whether it's on the top of the pack or on the back of the pack. There are player collectors out there in Unopened. And today it's my special guest, Brent. Thank you for joining us today, Brent.
Yeah, thank you for having me. Look forward to this.
Yeah, well, I figured we could start by you talking a little bit about your background in the hobby, and you could tell us a little bit about who you focus on in your unopened collection, because you are a player collector in the truest sense of the word, I think.
Yeah, I mean, it's funny. I always kind of gravitated towards individual players throughout my life, and I guess to give a little background on where I got started was the simple explanation was in 1984. My parents bribed me with packs, wax packs of 1984 tops. If I did my chores, if I helped around in the house, that type of thing. And pretty much from that point forward, I was hooked. Lived right next door to a baseball card shop, and I bought my first baseball cards out of that shop in 1984, and it's been a sickness ever since. I think that's something that I wish I could go back and make some different decisions. Back in 1986 and 87, buy some 86 Fleer basketball packs and things like that. But I think that's every collector, wishing they could go back and make some different decisions. But ultimately, I really liked players. What's funny is that I didn't really start collecting unopened packs until probably the last 5 to 10 years. But going back when I got back into this type of collecting, I went back into some old boxes and realized that even as a kid, I was keeping packs that were never opened, just because I liked the look of them. I liked how they were put together. I liked seeing players and that type of thing.
Mm-hmm.
And I've got a lot of friends in the hobby that struggle with the idea that I can just have packs, or any of us on these groups can just have packs that we never open. But I find it enthralling. So I am a huge fan of Nolan Ryan. I got into collecting Nolan Ryan back in the 80s and have never really looked back. I'd say that my obsession with Ryan has grown over the years. But what's funny is that I was actually a master set collector of Carl Yastrzemski, and a lot of people didn't even know that I was collecting Nolan Ryan in the background, but I'd been doing that. And right now I probably have, maybe 6,000 or 7,000 Nolan Ryan pieces. So it's quite a bit. Now, not all of those, as far as unopened, I probably I'm estimating here have about 130 or 140 unopened cellos and racks that have him showing. So it's much less than that 5,000 number, but it's a fun project.
What led you to gravitate towards Ryan?
Back in the 80s and 90s, I mean, I was a huge fan of Ken Griffey. I was a fan of, the Bash brothers, McGuire and Canseco. I loved Will Clark. I liked a lot of different players. For some reason, Nolan Ryan was he seemed like this everyman. Like he didn't kill you with stats. He was never on winning teams. He didn't have Cy Youngs, 15,000 Cy Youngs, to his name. I mean, he just went out there, did a good job. And I think that what was great about him was that he did some things that, going back, this was well into my Nolan Ryan career, but most Nolan Ryan collectors love like the feud between him and Robin Ventura. Like he wouldn't back away or shy away from other players. And then on top of everything else, I mean, he was pitching well into his middle life, which not a lot of players get that opportunity to do. I mean, have a career from 68 to 94. I mean, that's a huge span.
Yes, I agree with you. I mean, you can count them on one hand. Pete Rose is another one that comes to mind, but very, very few have that sort of durability. And it's hard not to make the case he is one of the greatest pitchers ever. Seven no hitters. I mean, yes, he never won a Cy Young, but that doesn't necessarily, to me, that doesn't take away from his career in any way. And I was one of the reasons I wanted to talk to you is I grew up a Nolan Ryan. When I was younger, Nolan Ryan was my favorite player. Of course, this is at the tail end of his career when I really got interested in him. But I just collected his cards, right? I had a Nolan Ryan drawer at my grandfather's house, and I would just every Nolan Ryan card we ever pulled, I kept. Like he would give it to me. I have Nolan Ryan starting lineups in my So I was curious to hear a little bit of your story about Nolan and how, because I've thought about it from my perspective, and I honestly don't know why I gravitated to him, other than he just looked like a tough guy. Maybe that's why he was just tough. Kind of what you were alluding to with Robin Ventura.
Mm-hmm.
You don't mess with the man. He was 40. I don't know how 40 some years old, and you put him in a headlock and.
Absolutely. Yeah, I mean, he reminds me of some of my friends and family that are just they're hard workers, and I think that if Nolan Ryan was not a baseball player, he'd be a rancher in Texas. He would be doing all kinds of different things that was definitely outside the scope of baseball.
Sure. Yeah, no, he was definitely. I mean, to this day, I'm sure. I mean, it's a cattle farmer, is he not? I think, right? Just a tough guy. Kind of reminds me of what Dale Earnhardt was to NASCAR. Maybe if there are NASCAR fans listening, I don't know if there are, but they're kind of that similar persona around him. So, do you want to show us some of your Nolan Ryan packs that you have in your collection? What are some of your favorites? Because you've got so many. It sounds like.
So I do. And, what's interesting is that I kind of view Unopened in a few different scopes. Of course, there is the traditional scope that you've got, the wax, the cellos, the rack packs, blister packs. I mean, a variety of different packs that are truly unopened. But I also kind of expand that a little bit and look at things like publications and uncut sheets as unopened as well, because it's not really circulated in the same fashion that you're opening up. And so I would say that probably, and this is I consider it unopened because it's never been cut out of the magazine or the newspaper before. But for those Nolan Ryan collectors that are out there, this is really his very first picture in any print media. And that is in a Sporting News. There's my big Sporting News. This is from 1966, and the thing is that in here it actually let's see if I can get back to it pretty quick while I'm sitting here talking. But he was playing for his minor league team, and let's see here. Probably should have opened this up before. Oh, there he is, right there. Okay, so this is from the, let's see which, it had Louis Tiant on the front, right there. This is from May 28th, 1966.
Oh, wow.
And right there.
Oh, there he is. Ryan racing the flashy start as Met
Greeny.
Oh, that's cool.
This is the first time his picture ever appeared in national media. And I kind of, as from Ryan, what's funny is that I have known about that picture for a decade or two, and never thought about going off and trying to find it. And it wasn't until another guy that's in our Unopened group, Andrew Hopkins, that he had mentioned it to me, and I was like, you know what, I never even thought about searching it down. So I went ahead and was able to hunt a copy down and have that. And then, also, like I said, it's things like this where you got uncut sheets, and you got Ryan's 78 card right there. You got his record breaker card right there. Down here, you got the Necro Ryan card right there, which let's see here. Nice little rack pack.
Oh, very nice. 1978 tops with the Necro Ryan on top. For those of you that are listening, that's really, really, really cool.
I don't know if you can see it with the reflection, but it's the Ryan record breaker card right there in the center.
Wow, a 78 rack with 2 Ryan showing, basically.
Yeah.
Right. Wow, that's awesome.
And then yeah, this is a 79 sheet. And again, that's his 79 card right there at the bottom.
Oh, that's cool.
And so, stuff like that is really, well, it's again, a little outside the scope of the traditional unopened, but those are pieces that, coming off as Tim always says in the group, straight off the factory line in Duria, it's now it's here. It's never been in collectors' hands as cut baseball cards.
Sure.
But I think that, the biggest racks and packs that I have are some of the most non-assuming packs. My passion, and many people in the group know this, is because 1984 is the first cards I ever opened, because Nolan Ryan is my favorite player.
Yeah.
It made perfect sense to collect a lot of 1984 Ryan packs. So, I've got my obligatory BBC 84 rack right here.
That's beautiful.
But I've got my 84 rack box that's got, right now I'm just a couple short, but it's got every single rack in this box has Ryan on top.
Oh, that's cool.
So,
That's really cool.
it is definitely a fan. And, what's funny is I had a number of these in hand, and then there were some other collectors like Evan Miller and Andrew and some other folks that had posted their collections of trying to fill a whole rack box with, Pete Rose or Don Mattingly or whoever it might have been. I was like, well, I've already got quite a few of these packs. I never even thought about filling a whole box. So let's go ahead and let's do that. So I would say that, again, they're not the most expensive racks. They're not the most valuable, to a lot of collectors, but for me, they are probably the most valuable, pieces in my collection, purely because it brings me back to being 5 years old and, going down to my parents' linen closet where the box of wax packs were and ripping those things open. I mean, it's real fun. Some of my other big ones, see, I actually got these two from a group member, Greg Newsbaum, who's a good buddy of mine. But the 1979 rack right there.
1979 with Ryan on top. That's beautiful. And then, of course, the 1980 tops with Ryan on top. That is probably my favorite Nolan Ryan card of that time period, that 1980. Do you have a favorite? Would it be 84 tops? Would that be your favorite Ryan of that time period, given the sentimental value of 84, or do you have another favorite?
I would say I was actually talking to another Nolan Ryan collector the other day about this, and he is I'd probably say there's very few people that have as many unopened packs as I do with Ryan on top, but there is one guy who's in our Facebook Nolan Ryan collectors group, and he probably has maybe the same number of packs as me, but he's got some huge packs, like 1973 rack with Nolan Ryan on top, and 74, 75, 76. I mean, he's got a lot of the 70s covered pretty well. But I was telling him, I said, I don't know of a Nolan Ryan base card of really any Topps, Fleer, Donruss that doesn't look good. Like Nolan Ryan always had a good looking card. And so I think in the 80s, 1984 is classic. And I don't know if it was just the direction that the photographers were pointed during his games, but because, he was on there as a righty, and they just got perfect pictures of him in his full delivery. And I think that that's great. And then you have your 1970 cards. I'd probably say my favorite 1970 card is either 1977 or 1978. Those are
Sure.
probably my top favorites. So,
Yeah,
and then
sure.
go
Oh,
ahead.
sorry. Oh, no, I was gonna say the only Ryan I'm trying to think of Ryan cards I don't like. The only one I really don't like, I would say, is the 76 tops. I just don't like, out of all the possible images they could have used of
Mhm.
Ryan, he looks like he's either just had a bad day or something's gone wrong, that day on the mount. It just wasn't, that's the only one I could think of. All the
Yeah,
rest
yeah.
just go, and I agree with you. 77 tops might be one of his nicest looking cards of that time period as well. But well,
Mhm.
but what were you going to say? So
No, I just think that, I mean, like I said, I mean, if it, and I understand what you're saying about 76 being, it kind of just a real close up and doesn't really,
mhm.
give you much. But if that's his worst card, I mean, like that tells you something about all the other cards that's in the collection. Now, I would
Oh yeah.
love to find, I mean, I wouldn't be able to afford it, but I would
Mhm.
love to be able to find, a rack that's 71 1970 is by far my number one favorite set of all time.
Mm,
But I would never be able to afford a rack with Nolan Ryan on it. I think that would just be astronomical.
sure.
My wife would be like, yeah, that's never going to happen. But and that's kind of my approach to collecting. I try to spend very little money on
Hmm.
my collection.
Sure.
I love trading. I trade a ton. I mean, most of the guys in the group, I think I've traded back and forth. What's great, like I was watching Greg's podcast with you, and one of the things that he mentioned that was pretty great, that me and him do all the time, is that we'll just send each other care packages, and
Sure.
like stuff like that is what takes me back to the mid 80s when I was with my friends and we would sit there and trade cards, and like anyone can go on eBay and buy stuff, or get things. I mean, I sell stuff all the time, and we'll buy things on eBay. From time to time, I get gift cards from eBay for gifts and things like that from family members. But there's something about trading, and when you can trade a pack that you don't necessarily have as much affinity for a pack that you do, and that other person gets to get that other pack that really means something to them. I mean, that
Mhm.
is really the thing that makes this hobby so much fun. Um, and some of the other pieces that I've gotten from members in the group, um, I mean, these are two big ones. I love that 1978 card that has him and Phil Necro on top as strikeout leaders is probably one of my favorite non-base card. It's probably my favorite non-base Nolan Ryan card ever made because um, I don't know if you can see. I went to Georgia. I grew up in Georgia. I'm a huge Atlanta Braves fan. Go Braves! We won the World Series this year. It's been a
Sure.
long, long time. But I mean, I was growing up in Atlanta in '95 when they won their last one, and so having Phil Necro on a card along with Nolan Ryan was like the best of both worlds. But I showed you the rack with it. I showed you the uncut sheet. But I also have the cello with it on top.
Oh, that's awesome. Yeah.
So it's one of my favorite ones. But I
Oh,
mean, it's just
that's a super clean solo too.
yeah,
Do
and
you send in packs to get graded?
I don't. I mean, I've got a couple here and there, but I don't because I like to actually like feel the packs, I like to hold the packs.
Mhm.
It's now if I had a pack that was getting close to maybe having a broken seal or something like that, and I wanted to preserve it, then I probably might send it off so that it protects it. But I mean, if it's a pretty tight or clean pack, I mean, I just love the thing. Now, if it's a high value pack, I definitely consult with some of those experts out there to make sure that I'm not picking something up that is problematic. Um, but outside of that, yeah, I mean, it's something that I like to keep non-graded. And this is another one. I picked that 78 pack up from Ed Tremblay in the group, and he's been a great resource. He's got a lot of great packs. I also picked this one up from him as well. which is
Oh,
the
wow.
75 cello.
75 cell with Ryan on top. That is gorgeous. That's
Yeah,
another
so
that's another classic Ryan card. That is just such a beautiful, the 75 tops regular issue card. That's just gorgeous. That's cool.
absolutely. And on the back of this one, it's got the 74 league leaders, and the 74 cards. Some of the league leaders had 4 images on them, and so this one is the victory leaders, and it has got Catfish, it's got Fergie Jenkins, and it's got Phil Necro on there as well. So
Oh, wow.
it's a pretty good one. And so I got this from Ed, and he had gotten it from Tim. So it has kind of traveled through the group. So
And for those of you that are unaware of what we're talking about here, if you watch my YouTube channel, you know that I'm a big proponent of the unopened community on Facebook, and Brent and I are in some of the same groups, and one of them is a group called Vintage Wax and Packs. Fantastic group, really, really tight knit group of guys, honest, really, really good people. I haven't had a bad interaction on there. Have you?
no, I mean, I think that, what's interesting is I'm on a number of Facebook groups, and some really big ones. And, some of those groups are, against like friends and family payments because people have been, kind of screwed over, or there've been people that, have real bad reputations. I mean, I think the admins on that group, Ken and Mike and Kurt and all of them. I mean, they do a great job, moderating everything. And I've got so many friends in the group, and I've brought friends into the group that are good people. I think that it's just it really it has been it's fostered by collectors that have a passion for the hobby versus some of those groups that you're a part of that's purely for people that are just wanting to flip merchandise, or
Yeah.
that are kind of more on the shady side of the hobby, which a lot of us good pure collectors don't want anything to be involved with.
Yes, absolutely. Yeah, no, I do think there's always individuals like that, but the admins in that group are just fantastic at keeping the bad apples out, so to speak. But yeah, I mean, a lot of the deals that I make now, they're not even on eBay anymore. It seems like it's more and more on Facebook, including trading, right? Which is something you've talked about. I've also traded with Greg a few times and
Mm-hmm.
a few items, and trading is such a fun way to go about it.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, and the people that you meet, I mean, I met Greg through the group, and like he said in his uh, interview or whatever, I never thought it was going to translate into what it ended up translating into. I mean, I ended up building him, his display system, and I'd say that the most, I mean, I love woodworking, but the most fun part of that whole process was once we got it all installed. I sat down and had a beer and put everything in his cabinet. Was able to just sit there and just enjoy uh, the fruits of my labor, the fruits of his labor as a collector, and it was really kind of a fun process. So, um, and one of my goals for collecting Nolan Ryan is I would love, if possible, because of course collation in packs, I would love to have a pack, solo pack, and a rack pack with Nolan Ryan's base card on the front and the back. Have one of each. Now with solo packs, that's a lot of times not possible because with collation, you're either going to be on the front of the pack or the back of the pack.
Sure.
1979 is a really good example of that. That he sits on the back of the pack, but it would be very suspect if he's on the front of the pack.
Well,
But I think that, and that's kind of like where some of my other boxes of just stuff is just Brian pieces that he is kind of all over. And then I also like doing variations. So here's a good example of a pack that it's not his base card, but I've got a few like 1982 racks where he's on top,
Sure.
but it's got the cello header.
Sure.
This one here is the cardboard header.
Sure.
So, and it's with the Houston Leaders card on top. When I picked this one up, and this was a while ago, but when I picked this one up, it was just being billed as, Nolan Ryan on top of a 1982 rack. And there was only a picture of the front, and I kind of took a risk on it, not knowing what was on the back. It ended up being that it was a valid pack, and everything. And
Sure.
lo and behold, on the back, I don't know if you could see it, but right there in the center, you got
Oh,
Carl Yastrzemski's 82 card. So I kind of
there we
lucked
go.
out. I mean, he didn't. The guy didn't even advertise that Yaz was on the back. So
That's cool.
it's always fun to pick up a pack. It's got somebody on the front and on the back.
Oh, yeah. Well, in those years where there's variations in the header types too, the cardboard headers, especially 82, 83, for whatever reason, they're just less common. So it adds a whole nother spin to it, and that's what people, I think, don't understand about unopened collecting is the variations and the bizarre combinations make it what it is. The fact that you can have a pack with some years with collation irregularity, such as 83 tops or 84 tops, you can find a Ryan, a rack pack with Ryan on top and on back, the same card in different cells.
Yeah.
Or you could find a Nolan Ryan with two Nolan, or a rack with two Nolan Ryans on back for those years. 85 2 being another one that, for whatever reason, tops collation just kind of went out the window for some years. That's possible, and so weird, unusual, really cool things like that do happen. And that's, I think, one of the biggest pulls, at least to me, for this type of collecting, is it is so different than just putting together a set, which anybody can put together. Oh, I put together a set of 85 tops. How'd you do it? Woo, good for you. That's not a big deal in the scheme of life. It's cool, but to me, this is such a harder, more challenging way to collect. Would you agree with that?
Absolutely. I mean, I have collected sets, most of my life, and I'll still, try to piece together some sets here and there. But I actually, up until about 2 years ago, I had from 1959 to into the 90s, but primarily 1959 to 1970, I had put together piece card by card about 95% of all of those sets. And I had full sets of 1960, 1961, 1962, 1964, 1965, 1970. Like I had full sets of those, and I put them in binders because it was fun to look at. But at the end of the day, I kept my 1970 set because that is my most, my most favorite top set of all time and most sentimental set. But all those other sets I ended up selling off because it just I ended up using that to fund like a business expansion. Well, partly I did it to a certain extent, and then it was it's not as fun. It is fun to complete a set, but it's just so much more fun to like hold something and know that the cards inside those packs, again, as Tim says, have not been touched by human hands since they've left the factory in Pennsylvania, And I think that is just, so cool to hold these pieces and the wherewithal, whether they came out of, sealed cases and so they never were exposed to air, but there's a lot of these packs that people pulled, back, some like these 1982 packs. They pulled in 1982 and purposefully didn't open because it had Nolan Ryan showing or Carl Yastrzemski or Pete Rose or any big player that was out at the time, and it survived all this time. All the hands that have touched it. I mean, it's just that type of stuff is super cool to think about.
Oh, absolutely. Yeah. The fact that I always call these they're artifacts. They're survivors. These are not meant to still be here. These were meant to be opened. That's why you have packs of cards. For whatever reason, back then, someone just had the foresight to hold on to it. And who knows how many people have exchanged. Just in the Facebook group, I know there are packs that I follow where it's, okay, this pack has been with at least 5 different individuals in this group. magnify that in life, how many other hands it's gone through, and it's still here. It's unopened.
Absolutely. Yeah,
Uh,
and that 75 cello that I have, I mean, I know it started out in Tim's collection and
mhm,
it went to Ed's collection and now it's in my collection. And, it probably will never leave my collection, but, I think that, it's really fantastic to see that and to understand. One of the things that Greg and I talked about, one time was this idea that, the modern card game really kind of concerns. I mean, people are dropping 10, 20, $30,000 on, modern cards. And I just, it blows me away. I mean, because even back in my childhood, in the 80s, no one was paying that kind of money for, packs you could pull out of packs. Like you might pay big money for old, cards. I mean, but even back then, like when Mr. Mint, found his 1952 stash, I mean, those mantles that he found, I mean, he's selling those for $1,000 a piece, and
sure.
like that is just it's crazy to think about some of the money that's being exchanged in hands. But you look at that, and people might pull unless it's a 101 or a 505. People are going to continue to pull those cards as more packs get opened. With the unopened side of things, they're not making any more 1984 tops. They might be still making some 88 Donruss or 89 tops or something like that somewhere, because it seems like they never, there's always some of that out there. But the, the these packs are not being made anymore. And so, and as people rip them, and I'll rip things every once in a while, especially if I've got to break my cellos or something like that. Might as well, go ahead and rip it open and experience your childhood a little bit, because as far as the value of the unopened pack, it's not really there anymore. Um,
Mhm.
if the tear is substantial or the seal's broken, um, but they're not making any more of these packs. So the scarcity is going to continue to go up. The value is going to continue to go up. I mean, I know in like the CU forums where we used to do a lot of case breaks and box breaks.
Mhm.
I mean, I remember one, I think it was back in 2016, a box of like 78 uh, 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 from a sealed case, 78 cello tops was being sold for $1,000, you know? And now if you were to find a FASC 78 cello box, um, I mean, I don't even know what the price would be on that, five, six, $7,000, because a non-FASC box is $2,000 or $3,000. So, it's really crazy to see these prices. I mean, I remember buying 78 cellos for $20, you know? And there's no way you could find cellos,
Sure.
I'm trying to think of what year you'd have to find. I mean, 86 maybe,
Yeah. Well,
86 you might get a cello for $20, or 85 definitely. I mean, I don't know, but definitely not 78.
yeah, no, no, the price increase has been dramatic. And even in the past 2 years, I mean, I sold a 78 cello PSA graded, I think it was a 9. I sold it on eBay for a few years ago at auction, and it went for like $56.
Mm-hmm.
And now it's easily a mint 9. It's probably a $250 pack. It's
Oh yeah,
just,
easily.
yeah, it's just overnight things just kind of just changed. I don't know if it's just the pandemic, or if it's a combination of factors, or what led to this particular area of the hobby to explode. But it seems like it's a very, very healthy area of the hobby if you were to go at it from an investment standpoint, which people like us do not do that. But
Mm.
but there is that possibility there, because as you pointed out, more and all they're not making any more of this. And
Yeah.
all that's happening is more and more of this stuff is getting opened, whether it's by Vintage Breaks, not to pick on them, or some of
Mhm.
these other companies. The supply is continuing to go down, and demand, I don't see demand ever going down for this type of stuff.
No, and the idea of to rip or not to rip, I'm definitely of the belief that, if it's your pack and you want to rip
Mm-hmm.
it, I mean, go for it. I would
Sure.
love to see it stay unopened, but at the same time, I also understand that, I mean, there is some nostalgia to it and everything. The thing I don't like about the unopened ripping market are some of kind of the false advertising to rope people into buying into some of these breaks. When some of us that understand collation, know that there's no chance that certain cards could come out of those packs,
Mm-hmm.
but they are advertising it as if, hey, get a chance to pull one of these, and if graded a PSA 9 or PSA 10, you've got a $30,000 card. Yeah, I mean that's possible, but it's not going to be possible in that pack, because
Sure.
collation wouldn't allow for it. So I think that that's definitely a part of the unopened world that over time might get ironed out, but I think there's always going to be those people out there. And I think that for all of us that really enjoy Unopened, I think that it's fun to chat. I think, to go back to your comment a second ago about the pandemic, maybe feeding some of this increase, I think that's part of it. I think that there's also this component that I've noticed, especially my generation, people that were born in the late 70s and even a little bit before, but grew up in the 80s and then got burned during the junk, wax revolution of just, there was so much out there and it was expensive at the time, and then realized that your cards then became really not valuable at all, that got out of the hobby. I've heard so many stories of people that left the hobby in 92, 93, 94, and then didn't come back into the hobby until the last 5 years.
Sure.
And it's those people that are now coming back into the hobby that have disposable income. They can say, hey, I want to relive my childhood and I'm willing to pay money for some of this stuff. And then you got people like, Mike in the group, who is a good buddy. And he's never going to get rid of his 75, rack packs and cello packs. And like, he's holding on to those things. So there's things that are being taken out of circulation for very good reasons. I mean, Mike is one of the greatest unopened collectors. And his stuff is there for him, and it's being pulled out of circulation. So it's not available for people to buy, which just drives up the scarcity for those things that are on the market. And so it's a great thing. And I'm happy to be a part of it. I'm happy. I feel lucky that I don't spend a lot of money in this hobby, that I am able to trade, or if I do buy something from time to time, it's with I try to sell something. I always have this motto of something in, something out. Like I don't want to just hoard all this stuff. So if I'm bringing something in, I try to sell something so that it leaves my collection, and that, much to my the happiness of my wife and family, so that
Sure.
I keep my collection small.
Sure. Well, and I think a lot of us, especially if your funds are limited, it is kind of a self-sustaining hobby. If something big comes in for me, then that means sometimes a few packs have to go, even if they're packs I'm fond of, but not as fond of what I'm getting in. Right. That idea, I think that's one thing where, unless you have unlimited funds, you're going to have to let some stuff go at some point.
No, absolutely. And I think that some of us really benefited from being able to let go of some things during the pandemic, because I think there were some people that maybe with the stimulus checks or other reasons, they had some more disposable income. And so I was able to sell a lot of things and fund some things that were quite great. I mean, I was able to some towards student loans. I got other pieces. I mean, I fund my, like the birthday gifts and the Christmas presents that I give my family by selling cards. I mean, what's better than that?
Yeah, no, that's this. It's a hobby that can provide, as well as for all the rewards it gives you, it can provide for others as well, which is really, I think, a really good thing. Well, Brent, thank you so much for coming on today. I really, really appreciate it. It's been wonderful chatting with you. And did you have any other packs before I let you go that you wanted to show, or any that you're particularly fond of that you haven't shown yet?
No, I mean, I think that the newest pack that I've got, because I've shown you some of the oldest packs I've got, maybe the newest is another one I got, remember off the page, but it's 92 Bowman, which in itself is a great set because of the rookies that are in there.
Sure.
But what's great on this one is, and it's definitely the epitome of press and pack, but Ryan is sitting right there on the back, so it's a fun little thing. So from old to new, I don't have anything after 1992, mainly because I don't think there's much that I'm super fond of, and I stopped collecting in '94. So I kind of keep my collection to those years that I really loved collecting myself. So
Sure.
um, so anyway, yeah, no, I could sit here all day long and show you 1,000
No, I
things.
could
So
too.
yeah,
Uh,
no, but no, I appreciate you asking me to be a part of this, and hopefully it encourages some other people to go down the player collection specialization, because uh, man, as you know, it's addictive, it's fun, it's enthralling, and what's even great about this is that the people on our unopened group, we all get excited for each other when packs are picked up that mean something to that person, because I really don't care much about collecting packs with Pete Rose on it or Mike Schmidt on it or any of these other great players. They're fantastic players, but I want Nolan Ryan stuff, and
sure.
I leave all those other packs to those people that like those players.
Sure. Well, I know Evan and some of the other collectors in the group appreciate that, I'm sure. No, that's thanks again. Wonderful, wonderful Nolan Ryan collection. And I'm sure you've inspired someone here. If they haven't already become a player collector, if you're considering it and you're watching this, this may be one way.
Stay away from Nolan
Stay
Ryan.
away from Nolan Ryan. Stay away from Nolan
Don't
Ryan.
touch Nolan
Sorry,
Ryan. I
sorry.
already have too much
But
competition.
this is one way that some people do collect unopened. So keep that in mind. If you're contemplating starting an unopened collection of your own, this is one possible avenue for you. Putting Nolan Ryan to the side, of course, and saving those for Brent. Well, thank you again, Brent, and take care, everybody.
Thank you.